Ever feel like you're drowning in a sea of marketing tools trying to keep your business running smoothly? What if you could simplify it all with one platform? That's where Go High Level comes in, your all-in-one sales and marketing solution built for small businesses like you. In fact, Go High Level has over 1 million users just like you. With Go High Level, you can capture leads, automate your prospect and client journeys, quickly and efficiently build stunning websites, sales pages, and sales funnels. Imagine managing your CRM, email, SMS, and funnels without duct taping a dozen tools together. Plus, their unlimited plan lets you add as many contacts and users as you need, no hidden fees. We've been using Go High Level for over a year now and absolutely love it. In fact, Profit First Nation is also powered by Go High Level. Ready to level up? Start your Profit First Nation extended 30-day free trial today at www.gohighlevel.com/Profit First Nation. That's www.gohighlevel.com/Profit First Nation. Streamline your workflow, impress your clients, and grow smarter, not harder. Well, hello, my entrepreneurial friends. I have a very special program that I'd like to introduce you to, and you have a short time to act. It is called Second Half Strong. It's strategic advisory, coaching, and accountability so that you can finish 2022 maximizing your profitability. What is it? Well, we're going to develop new ideas, generate more profitable sales, incubate new or additional business opportunities to your core business, improve existing products, services, or methods, create new products, or we're going to really make you super productive and get you extremely intentional, and that is how you'll maximize profitability. This is for US-based business owners with $1 million or more in annual revenue who have implemented Profit First. And this is a program that you should expect a 6x to 10x return on this coaching opportunity. There's lots of sessions in it. Again, there's a monthly strategic advisory session. You get one-on-one coaching sessions. You show up every day to sprint on your business for 1 hour a day. You have daily accountability check-ins with your accountability advisor. You have connect and collaborate sessions with your fellow entrepreneurs. And we will have weekly Power 30 sessions. Oh, and did I mention you get to come to a very special event November 30th through December 1st in Southern California with myself and Mike Michalowicz and our fellow Second Half Strong members. This is going to really make your second half the best and most profitable second half you've ever seen in your business. If you'd like to join us, check out secondhalfstrong.com.
Welcome to Profit First Nation, the official podcast for entrepreneurs who are operating their businesses in the zone of permanent profitability. I'm Mike Michalowicz, the author of Profit First, and now here's your Profit First Nation guide, Daniel Mulvey.
Welcome to Profit First Nation, the podcast for the top 17% of entrepreneurs with cash in the bank to correlate to their profitability. Profit First Nation is the podcast for intelligent entrepreneurs who have taken ownership of their financials and leverage Profit First as a cash management system to make their businesses permanently profitable. I am Danielle Mulvey, an expert at guiding entrepreneurs on owning their financials in as little as 11 minutes per day and doing Profit First right. If you are a fan of Profit First and its author, Mike Michalowicz, you have found your tribe. We are a nation of successful entrepreneurs driven to be permanently profitable with a grit and a growth mindset that lets no obstacle stand in our way in pursuit of the 3 Ps: passion, profit, and play. On Profit First Nation, we dive into advanced Profit First strategies, and we share the honest and authentic ups and downs of being a business owner. Today is a special episode. It is an episode where we have a guest sharing their Profit First journey. We have Joe Wellbourn of Carbon Marine. Welcome, Joe.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is really exciting.
Very cool. So we always start off with the same question. How'd you hear about Profit First?
I knew you were going to ask me this. So it goes back, I think, about 3 years ago. I think I heard about it on a podcast, and I thought, that's an interesting concept. I immediately got it because of my first foray into college was into accounting, and I realized it was kind of boring, and I didn't want to do that, so I changed to computer science. So I made a mental note, and I just started digging in. At that point, I'd been in business about 12 years, and just a classic cash flow management by checking your bank account every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was a classic example of that. So I downloaded the Audible book, listened to it. On my way, I was flying out to Wyoming to elk hunt, and I listened to it on the way out there and on the way back. And then there was a lot of stuff that I needed to see in the book. So I bought the book and, fell down the profit first rabbit hole. A little bit of a false start in the beginning because I just didn't implement it correctly, backed up and said, you know what, let me hire a professional. And I reached out to a profit first professional. Also needed a bookkeeper at that point. Our bookkeeper wasn't very good. The bookkeeper we hired was a profit first professional, got our chart of accounts cleaned up, got us cut over to Profit First, and it's changed my life. Literally, I think it saved my company. I don't think I would be here if I hadn't made the change.
Wow, that's quite a testament there. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about pre-Profit First. So kind of at that stage, you mentioned that you had a bookkeeper, but they weren't a very good bookkeeper. So kind of, can we unpack that a little bit?
Sure. So it's classic entrepreneurial story. If you've ever read, the book escapes me right now, but the classic entrepreneur, you're stuck in your business. Like every day is crisis.
The E-Myth.
The E-Myth. Yeah. Yes. The E-Myth. Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Mandatory reading. So I read that first. I was exposed to that first, and I was just trying to start to get my head around processes. And I knew the way I was managing cash flow was insufficient, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And I walk in every day. Our business has grown from nothing. I started on my kitchen table 15 years ago, and every year it doubles, but you're still grinding. And I was the classic entrepreneur grinding and not paying attention. And I use this analogy because I think it resonates with anybody, and it's simple to understand. When I discovered Profit First, envision this. I'm in a car. I'm driving 100 miles an hour down a dirt road in the dark, no lights, no dash lights. And all of a sudden, once I finished Profit First Audible, it's like somebody turned on the dash lights, and my gas gauge was on E. My oil gauge was on E. My radiator temperature is overheating, and I'm about to run off the road into a ditch in a giant forest of trees, and the lights came on just in time. And I saved it. So that's literally how it come to be. But it got that way because, as a small business owner, I always focused on what am I putting in the bank, right? I always tell people I can't deposit. I can only put a dollar amount and deposit what I collect. So I've just hyper focused on generating revenue. But I wasn't taking care of where the revenue was going. And I just, I was leaking. I was a boat with a bunch of holes in it and not paying attention to where the money was going, just looking blindsidedly at revenue. And all of a sudden, I've got a $300,000, $400,000 company. And in December of 19, we were at $492,000 in revenue. I had 6 employees, and I was illiquid. I was out of cash. I had no cash. I was completely illiquid.
Wow.
And I just woke up, and that's right after our Profit First consultant had got our books cleaned up, and I'm like, I got to make some tough decisions. And payroll was $192,000 of the 492 gross, which is horrible. Mm-hmm. So I, ripped the company into vertical categories, looked at every desk, looked at every category, product category, and realized I had a couple categories I was bleeding out of my eyes, and payroll was significantly higher than it should have been. So I kept my best guy, and I doubled his pay, and I let everybody else go. And I literally went, my wife and kids were off traveling because my daughter's a celebrity chef, and she had just won Chop Junior. So they were off visiting their family in the Philippines. Wow. Yep. So they were gone. So it was just me and now my insolvent company. So I sat at my kitchen table and, ramen noodles and leftovers for 2 weeks, just trying to figure out how do I stay liquid, and sold some things and got through it. But then I realized I have to pay attention. Like the bookkeeping is absolutely essential. So we structured the company into product verticals, and then we started paying attention. What's the margins in each one of those verticals? And we discovered some of the things that we thought were really good books of business were horrible. We were losing $65,000 a year. And I just said, this, I like to think I'm a little smarter than the average guy, but I wasn't. I was just not paying attention. So we cut half of our offerings off, done. We just walked away from the business, looked at what we were best at, that had the highest barrier to entry, that we were known for throughout the world, and we doubled down on those categories, and we just started tracking. Where's the money going, set up Profit First, set up our the various accounts. I'm not going to get too deep into the woods on the mechanics of Profit First, but setting up our allocations and then just adhering to our allocations and adhering to the process. And within a year, completely turned the company around from having no cash to having over, I think it was about $142,000 in cash, net profitability at 24.5%, if my memory is correct, 24.6, something like that. Like a complete turnaround. Like my bookkeeper and accountants, they couldn't believe it. They're like, we thought you were gone. We didn't think you were going to make it.
Wow.
And this is all going into COVID. So we saw a little bit of a revenue downturn in COVID, but our profitability skyrocketed because I started paying attention to where the money was going. And had I not implemented Profit First in the allocations and disciplined myself to spend within the allocations, and the allocations are also set to our industry and what effective gross margins should be. It changed my life.
Wow.
Big change.
Clearly, and that's amazing. And it sounds like, I loved your analogy of you were driving on a dark road in the dark, no lights on your dashboard, no headlights, just blind. So let's kind of like go back to that stage and stuff. You did have a bookkeeper. So tell us about that bookkeeping relationship back then. Were they just like, reconciling your accounts and not sharing the reports with you? Like, where do you think?
Yeah. So the reports, there was a couple things. Number one, I wasn't asking the right questions because, if you're the owner of your company, you're the driver, not your bookkeeper, not your accountant. You're the driver. You're ultimately responsible for what comes out in the financial statements. So number one, I wasn't asking for the right information. And then secondly, without sounding too disparaging, I just had the wrong bookkeeper. I had a company that they were a bookkeeping company, but all they did was just input data into QuickBooks Online, is the system we use. And they weren't generating P&Ls. They weren't generating balance sheets. They were just saying, okay, all your books are here. You can go look at them when you want. And I wasn't getting any live feedback on, where are we relative to the metrics or the KPIs for our industry. Each industry's got its own set of measurement data that says, okay, this is a healthy, parameter, and this is an unhealthy parameter. So I wasn't getting any of that feedback, and it's my fault. I'm not casting judgment or blame on anybody. It ultimately ends with me. But that, as an entrepreneur, the biggest disservice you can do to yourself is to pretend that other people are going to help you, that other people are going to do this for you without you asking the questions. You have to ask the questions, and I wasn't asking the questions. That's how I got there.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be too hard on yourself because, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So, lesson learned, most bookkeepers and accountants, probably 95 or more % of them out there, are really just reconciliation and compliance focused. They're just wanting to put things in the right box, and they don't really understand the big picture. They don't understand anything past that and such. So there is a tremendous difference between just a run-of-the-mill bookkeeper or accounting firm and a certified Profit First professional firm, where you get that compliance, getting it in the right box and such, but you also get that consultative analysis and such, because they're the ones really kind of in the numbers and such. And so you need a guide. And that's why we've got Profit First professionals to help guide entrepreneurs in navigating the road to permanent profitability. So not uncommon, but I'm glad that we can, illustrate clearly between the difference between common accounting, which is just, kind of leaving you in the dark. It's compliant, but it's not doing any good or any purpose for you, versus working with a Profit First professional. And let's give a shout out to Angie Knoll. She is your Profit First professional. She's a mastery certified Profit First professional with Reconciled Solutions. And actually, she's been on this podcast before, and I should have pulled up what that episode was, but we'll put Angie's episode in the visual recap for you guys so that you can catch that too. Now, you got your books cleaned up with Reconciled Solutions, and then you got some clarity about things, and then you realized, wow, payroll was, 192,000, almost 50% of your total gross revenue. And you immediately made some decisions right there that you knew that you had to cut payroll. So can you kind of talk us through why you think you got to 6 employees, or what your intention was having 6 employees versus then you went down to 1 employee, and sounds like that was the best move you made?
Yeah. So I think the delusion that we as entrepreneurs get drawn into is that bigger is better. And I'm going to reflect back on another book that didn't come back to focus in my mind's eye until later. And it was a gentleman that wrote a book called Small Giants. And I read this book about 7 years ago, and it's about companies that decided to focus on being small than being big. So the fallacy that I fell into, and that I think most people fall into, my family's been in small business, and I saw my mother make the same mistake, is bigger is better. And when I say bigger, I'm referring to revenue. Everybody grow revenue, grow store count, grow head count, just grow. Mm-hmm. But the reality of the matter is, if you really get back into the E-myth, if the quality of your business is not very good, meaning the turns and the margins and what you're keeping as a small business owner is not good, all you're doing is killing yourself faster by trying to grow faster. And I got caught up in that trap. And I think it's a trap that's a little bit egotistical, not to sound overly harsh, but we all have values, and we're measuring the world against these values, whether they're artificial or they're factual. And I think we get jaded by the entertainment components of the media. We get jaded by all these cultural influences that, you're not successful if you don't have a $10 million chain. Well, the reality of the matter is now we're just shy of $1 million in revenue. When we converted over to Profit First, we were at 492 and barely profitable, and a train wreck just waiting to fall off the tracks. And now our profitability is higher than it's ever been. We make fewer SKUs than we've ever made because we sat back and realized that focus is better than size.
And I think also too, Profit First and working with a Profit First professional gives you a little bit of accountability too, because like you said, it's hard sometimes that you get distracted and you don't work on your business and such. But the allocation rhythms, working with a certified Profit First professional who's going to go over your reporting with you and provide you with some sort of feedback on that and such is really important. But like you said, you have to be the driver. On the podcast we've talked about, you've got to pull your head out of the sand, but you've got to own your financials. You have to drive your business. You have to drive your numbers and your financials. And I think those are all just like cannot be reiterated enough, that you set aside that time to work on your business. So
can I interrupt for just a moment? I want to speak to something I think is really important, because in hindsight, I remember having this feeling and really fighting it. And then in hindsight, after we got past and the system's implemented and I'm yielding, we're harvesting the fruit of the system. I remember losing sleep at night saying, wow, I'm going to pay somebody that doesn't know my business a lot of money, right? It's not inexpensive. To me, it wasn't inexpensive because I was cash insolvent. But I saw through the plan. I said, you know what? If this works, it's going to change my life. If it doesn't work, I'm still insolvent, so it doesn't matter, right? I'm kind of in an asymmetrical position in the curve here. I got to go for this. And I remember just saying to myself, man, that's a lot of money. My wife saying, man, that's a lot of money. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm a risk taker. I'm going to go for it. And I convinced myself to spend the money to hire the professional. Hire the Profit First professional. In the beginning, you're not going to like it. It's like paying the trainer, X amount of dollars a month, and you're still overweight and you're still not strong. But 2 years later, you're going to look back and go, it's the best money I ever spent. Like literally, it was the best money I've ever spent. And that's super important because I've got other friends that are in business, been in business a long time, and I've tried to convert them to Profit First, and they'll listen and they buy the book and they don't hire the professional. And then I go back and check on them later and they're like, it just didn't work for us. I'm like, yeah, because you don't have anybody to hold you accountable. And that's what was so powerful about having that professional is that Angie, my allocated time to sit down with her would come up, and I'm like, man, I got so many other things I need to work on. I got so many other revenue opportunities I got to convert. Man, I got to get on this call. And I'd begrudgingly, I'd get on the call, and then all of a sudden she'd reveal something about our numbers that were amazing, or she'd show me something that would make me feel better. And then I realized, hey, this is why I hired the professional, because they're there to hold you accountable, because you're not holding yourself accountable. And that's why you're in that position to begin with.
Exactly. And I really appreciate you kind of making that soapbox stand on that. Yeah, I think that is probably like the biggest sort of
a hindrance because I see it and I hear it. It's a hindrance, and it's like a self-inflicted wound, because the people that need this the most don't understand what it's like on the other side. They just don't understand how easy your life can be if it's set up properly.
And really, you've got to look at it as an investment, and you then need to work on getting a return on that investment. Working with a Profit First professional is you making an investment on your business to turn it into more profitable. And you should easily be able to get, a 6x to 10x return on that profitability. I mean, you within a year, you probably, I don't want to guess the numbers, but you easily 6x or 10x the investment that you made in working with Angie when you ended up with over $100,000 in net profit.
Yeah. So the other thing that makes it really beneficial is all of a sudden you'll start getting outside validation that you have a company, right? When you start going down and adhering to the Profit First standards, there's so many people that say, they go out and they present to the world, I own my own company and I'm my own boss, right? But really, what's that mean? Most people think that they're their own boss. Most people think they own their own company, but really they own their job. They own their job. So if you're not working to set up your financial systems and your cash flow systems and your work product, how you do your work, so that you can pull yourself out for healthy vacations and healthy time off to reset, to keep your creative juices and your entrepreneurial spirit healthy, you don't own a company, you own your job. And that's not a very good place to be if you have an exit strategy later in life, because nobody wants to buy your job. They want to buy your company, and they want to buy your company because it's got established profitability. It's got recognized KPIs relative to other players in your vertical industry, and they can benchmark it against somebody else and determine, hey, if I buy this, it's going to yield X amount of return for what I'm going to spend on it. And if you're not working at the cash flow management level and at the bookkeeping level and at the accounting level to establish those benchmark accounts, KPIs, when it comes time for you to exit, you're going to be in for a rude awakening, because nobody's going to write you a check to buy your job. They want to buy a business.
Exactly. And so, I mean, you're like a perfect case study on Profit First and getting on the path to permanent profitability. And I just want to reiterate that, when you got your books cleaned up, when you started working with a Profit First professional, the first aha was, let's cut expenses. There's only two ways to increase profitability. That's decrease expenses and increase margin. And so number one, you decreased expenses. You just eliminated several employees who weren't really producing a return on their payroll. And then the second thing is you focused on margin, and you eliminated those loss leaders and those SKUs that just weren't doing anything for you. And it sounds like you might have raised prices a little bit or done something in order to also kind of maximize that margin.
We did. We ended up doing all of that. And we did it all with confidence, because once we had confidence in our books, once we could look at, let's just say one of our categories is push pulls. A lot of people don't know what that means, but I know this one the best. And we sell B2B and we sell B2C. So the challenge with serving both B2B, B2B's business to business, wholesale, and B2C, direct to the consumer, is that the pricing structure is different. And the wholesale side of the channel, they're expecting you to forego some margin because they're going to buy more, right? They're going to drive your revenue number, but you're going to get less margin on it. And I actually had to, this was a tough decision. And at that point, my only staff member looked at me and he's like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I'm like, "We have to do it. We don't have a choice." We actually fired customers. We went in and let go of the customers that was causing us the most amount of grief, time, resources that were yielding the least amount of return. And, without getting off on a tangent, that's the pumpkin patch, right?
Right.
And I started practicing that after we got Profit First launched, and I could go look at the numbers and say with confidence, wow, I'm spending 80% of my time on this class of customers, but I'm only getting, effectively a 20% margin. Well, that's not good. So we come up with a model that took our B2C business. It's about 54-46. We're 54 B2C, 54 B2B.
Oh, okay.
And we came up with a model that said, all right, if we want our effective company margins to be X, then we know the wholesale margins are going to be lower than the retail margins. So we went back to our wholesale customers and said, look, you can no longer call us an order one. You're a wholesale account. If you're a wholesale account, you got to order 5. It was out of control. We had a 20% slice of our business that we're getting one-off orders from a wholesale account with effectively a 15-20% margin. And I finally just shut it down.
Excellent.
And we started setting wholesale minimums, and it made the good accounts better, and we lost the bad accounts, and I never looked back. And that's a hard lesson because it sounds a little ruthless and it sounds a little cold, but unfortunately, those people are taking advantage of you because they don't know what they're doing.
Right. Yes, exactly that. I mean, we do the same thing in our construction material supply business. I mean, if someone is just like not answering their phone, not paying their bills, like there's a problem there, and we don't do future projects with them.
Right.
The writing's on the wall. So that was really brilliant of you to insert a minimum order threshold for your customers, and then kind of you were able to draw a line in the sand between your bueno and your no bueno customers, and letting those no bueno customers really sounds like it kind of freed up your time to more than double the business in 3 years. So this is an amazing story. So thank you so much for joining us on this podcast, Joe. If you would like to work with a certified Profit First professional accountant, bookkeeper, or coach, then please go to profitfirstnation.com and click on contact. And if you would like to join our Second Half Strong program that is running July 1st through December 31st, it includes, like Joe was talking about, working on your business. So we set aside an hour every day where we host sprints where you're working on your business. We have monthly strategic advisory sessions. You'll get one-on-one coaching sessions. And then we've got daily accountability check-ins on top of the daily sprints. And you'll have opportunities to connect and collaborate in our community with other entrepreneurs who have 10 or more employees and $1 million or more in real revenue. And we also have weekly Power 30 sessions where you can bring your questions, you can bring your concerns, you can bring whatever you want to the table. And we do some ad hoc consulting and coaching on that as well. So go to Second Half Strong to check that out. That's secondhalfstrong.com. Cheers to another profitable day, my entrepreneurial friends. Profit First Nation website, related podcasts, and resources are provided for general information purposes only and do not constitute accounting, legal, tax, or other professional advice. Visitors should not act upon the content or information found here without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional.
Hey, this is Ro, and if you're a business owner struggling with hiring or just tired of doing it yourself, I highly recommend the Build Your Dream Team Secret Podcast series. There are 7 episodes packed with real stories from founders who've cracked the code on hiring, built high-performing teams, and finally got out of the day-to-day grind. My favorite part? It's not fluff. It's systems, strategy, and results. Text DREAM to 55444. That's DREAM to 55444 to check it out. You'll thank me later.